Welcome back to our research YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful off-shoulder gigot sleeve. So it's a combination of a puffy sleeve and a pencil sleeve, and I use this beautiful Ankara fabric for this tutorial. If this is what you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So to make this off-shoulder gigot sleeve, I have my fabric here folded, and the total length of the sleeve I'm working with is around 22 inches, okay, with allowance. So you can see we have 22 inches here. So the armhole I'm working with is 16 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 8 inches, so I'll add 1 inch allowance to make it 9 inches, and that is how I fold it here. So this is folded now, and it's 9 inches by 9 inches on fold. That's 18 inches when it is opened by 22 inches. So now for the off shoulder sleeve, I went off by 4 inches. So from this folded part here, I'll mark the 4 inches, and then I'll add half inch allowance with to make it 4.5, and this is the 4.5 inches there. So for the cap height, I'm measuring 3.5. If it's for a plus size, you can do 4 inches. So now my 3.5 inches is here from the upper part, and then I'm going to take my curve and connect from this 4.5 to the 3.5 inches for my armhole curve. So here I'm connecting like this, and then after connecting it like that, I'll take my scissors now and I'll cut this out. I just want to make sure that it is well laid. So here now I'll take my scissors and cut out this curve. I just want to cut the curve out because my chalk is not so visible, so I want us to see what I'm doing. So this is what we'll have. The next thing is to shape the sleeve, and to shape the sleeve you need to take the round measurement of your wrist. That's where your sleeve is stopping. So for me, this is around 9 inches. 9 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 4.5 inches. So I'm going to be adding 1 inch allowance to that, and that's going to give me 5.5. So on this hem line, I'm going to measure 5.5, and then I'll take my pant curve and then I'll connect it to my armhole area. So you can see what I have. I'm just connecting it from that point to the armhole area, and then I'll cut it out. So this is my basic sleeve. The next thing now is to go ahead now and draft the flare part of the sleeve to form the gigot sleeve that we want to cut. Okay, so we have this now. This is our half shoulder basic sleeve. So now for the flare, you can either do a 360-degree flare if you want your sleeve very full, or you can do a half circle flare. So for me, I think I'll be doing a 360-degree flare, but the first thing is for you to note where your flare is going to stop. So for me, from the upper part here, I want it to stop around 11 inches, which is this. So I'm going to mark out that 11 inches, and that's going to be the length of my flare. But when you are drafting it on your bodies, you should not draft exactly 11 inches, so that you give it enough room for it to curve out very well. So instead of cutting out a length of 11 inches, I'm just going to be adding maybe 4 inches to that, and then I'll cut out a length of 15 inches for my flare. And then for the radius, you need to measure the circumference, and we're adding it to this area. So I'm just going to try and take a tentative measurement here, but because I'm still going to pleat it, I'm going to add to it. So I just want to have an idea. So I have 5 inches on that part. Here I have 14 inches, so you can just put it on fold and you just multiply what you have by 2. So here now on the upper part here, I have 4.5 inches, and then on this curved area, I'll start from the 4.5 inches that I stopped, and then I'll take the measurement round. So here I have around 10 inches. So I'm just going to add 5 inches to the 10 inches, and that's going to give me 15. So if you multiply that 15 by 2, remember this is on fold, it's going to give you 30 inches. And if you think it's too much, you can just multiply by the 10 by 2, and that's going to give you 20 inches. So the 20 inches is what I'm going to be dividing by 6.28 to form my radius for the flare. So to do this, I'm going to be folding my fabric into 4. Okay, so for my radius, I decided to add 5 inches to my total length. Remember, I measured 10 inches on fold, multiplied by 2 is going to give me 20. So I added 5 inches extra to that, and then I divided it by 6.28 to give me 3.9 thereabouts, and I'm approximating that to 4 inches. So from the upper part, remember this fabric is folded into 4. I'm going to measure the 4 inches round. Okay, so I'm measuring 4 inches round, and then I'll connect it, and then from there I'll measure my 19 inches. Remember, my 15 inches. Remember, the actual length is 11 inches. I added 4 inches extra to it, that's 15, and then I'm adding 1 inch seam allowance to it, and that's giving me 16 inches. So from that point now, I measure 16 inches round, and then I cut it. So now I'm cutting the radius, and this is what I have. So this is my full flare. You can see it's quite big. So I'm just going to open it up on one side, because remember the sleeve we are adding it to is not closed. So I've opened it up on one side, and this is going to be my center fold. So this is the fold point, and this is the other side now. So the next thing now is for me to bring in my sleeve. Okay, the sleeve that I already drafted, so that I can get this armhole curve. I'm just bringing in the sleeve now, and then I'll place my armhole like this, so that I can shape out that armhole curve. Okay, so let me just use this right side so that it will be more feasible for us to see. So once you place your curve very well, I'm going to place it like this, and then I'll shape out the curve. Okay, so this cup is shaped out now. You can notch that place so that by the time you are gathering it, so now you can see that what we have here is in excess compared to what we have on the lower parts here. So the excess that I have, I'm just going to gather it here so that it can give me something voluminous. So the first thing I'll do now is to gather everything that I have. So remember, we are stopping this on the 11 inches mark. So let me use this blue chalk so that we'll see it better. So this is the 11 inches mark. Okay, so this blue chalk here is the 11 inches mark. So now the hem of the flare, that's the largest part of the flare where we measured the 16 inches round. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine now, and then gather it to fit into this space of the 11 inches from here to here. I'm going to gather everything to fit into that space. Then after gathering it, I'm going to fold it over now, and then sew it to the upper part also. So I'll go over to the machine now and do that. For you to gather, I'm going to section it. So this is the entire space we are gathering this to. I'm just going to divide this space into 4. So I'm just going to fold it into 2, and then I'll note the midpoint, because it may be quite challenging. So I'll note the midpoint to be here, and then I'll divide this into 2 again. So you can use your tape rule for this also. So I'm just going to place this now. I have around 6.5 inches. Then I'm going to put it on fold and mark, and then here also I'm going to do the same thing. So you can see that these have been successfully divided into 4. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the same thing that I've done here, I'm going to divide this flare also. That's the hem line where I want to sew. I'm going to divide it into 4 by just folding this fabric into 4 the way we cut it out initially, and then I'm going to leave a notch there. So I'm going to notch it, and that way I've sectioned this into 4. So now I'll go ahead and sew this on my sleeve. So to sew it, like I said, I'm going to place your sleeve like this, and then you're going to sew the hem of your flare. You're going to gather it to this portion of the sleeve. So So I just want to do it one after the other. So this first fold here, remember it has been sectioned into 4, is the first one I'm going to be gathering. So I'm just going to put this under my machine, and then I'm doing this gathering manually. You can also use, you can gather it first before you sew it to it. So now I'll be gathering this with my hand. So you can see the way I'm gathering it. And once I get to that notch, so this is the notch that I made for the first one. Once I get to that notch, I'm going to stop. So once I gather this now, I'll sew. I'm going to sew it gently. I'll stop again and then continue gathering. So with those notches, you're not going to gather too much. So now I've gotten to the notch area, so you can see the notch here. So I'm going to stop and then spread everything that I've gathered within that box, that first section box that I have. So I'm going to spread everything within that box, and then I'll sew it. So that is an easy way you can gather this to your sleeve. So when it is spread like that, I'm going to sew it, and then I'll move to the next box, which is this, and the next notch that I have is this. So it means everything from here all the way to here, I'm going to be gathering it to the next section box. So now I'll take this also, and then I'll gather it manually, and then I'll continue to sew. So that is what I'm going to do till I get to the end point. Okay, so now I've gathered everything, and you can see that they just fit right into this. So now the next thing is for me to take the upper part now and then gather it to this point also. Okay, so you can see what I did. I just sew it here. By the time I fold it over, it's going to completely conceal the rough edges for me. So now the upper part, that's the radius part, is what I'm going to be gathering to the upper part of the sleeve. But first, the curve that we created by placing this on the flare, I'm going to sew in the curve. So I'll just place this under my machine now, and then I'm going to sew the curve. So once the curve is sewn, the excess that I may have here, I've notched the middle. I'm going to gather it to these 4.5 inches that we mark. That's going to be 9 inches on fold. So I'm going to be gathering the excess there, and then the other side, the curve that I did, I'll also sew it to the curve. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. By the time I sew it and bring it out, I'm sure we'll understand this better. So now this is me just gathering the excess that I may have here on the upper part of my sleeve. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it, so you can see the upper part, which is 4.5 inches on fold like this, and then this is the armhole part that we curved. So now to conceal these rough edges, now I'm going to cut a long strip of fabric, and then I'm going to use it to turn it out. So I'm just going to take this fabric now, and then I'll sew it on it, and then use it to completely wrap it up here. Another method you can use for this upper part now is to just make this longer. Instead of cutting your actual measurement of 4.5 inches, you can just make this, you can double it by cutting maybe 9 inches on fold, and then by the time you open it up, it's going to be 18 inches. Then create a casing and pass elastic to gather it. So it depends on what you want to go for, but I prefer to just cut it into my actual size like this than using an elastic, because sometimes elastics do affect the skin, okay, especially because it's going to be on the shoulder area. So now I'll go ahead now and conceal this part. Then remember, instead of 11 inches we used 15 inches as our measurement, so we are going to be having excess on this side area also. So the excess that I may have, I'm going to gather it also on this side on both parts before I take my sleeve together and shape it. So I'm just going to do this now and then bring it back to show us. Okay, so now I've gone ahead to sew it neat, and you can see how clean it is both inside and out. And then you can just see the inside of this sleeve. You can see that it is neatly finished. You cannot see any rough edges on the inside, and then the same thing on the outer part. So here now you can just serge these rough edges on this side by the time you sew it up. So now, and also on the side, the excess that I have there, you can see that I've roughly pleated it to fit in to this space that I have. So the last thing to do now is just to sew in your sleeve on the hemline area here. Then after hemming it, I'm going to be taking the two sides together and then shape it by the 1 inch allowance that I left. So now I'll take it to the machine now and then go ahead to shape it, and then I'll take it to the mannequin so that we'll see what we have. Okay, so it has been sewn now. You can see I've hemmed it on the lower part, and then I went ahead to sew it on this part also. So you just need to serge this area so that you have something clean. And this is what our sleeve is looking like. You can see how big this is. So like I said, if you don't want it this big, you can use a half circle as against the full circle that I used here. So now I'll take this to the mannequin so that we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what our sleeve looks like on the mannequin now, and you can see the volume that we have here. So it can also actually be placed on the shoulder or off the shoulder as the case may be. And then you cannot use your exact length measurement. Remember, when I measured this from the upper part, I want my flare to stop around 11 inches, but I added 4 inches extra for this puffiness that I have here. If you use exactly 11 inches, it's just going to drag it and it's going to be flat like this. So you need that extra few inches for it to become puffy like this. And if you even want it more puffy, you can add more than 4 inches that I added to this. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and this is the pencil part of the Gigot sleeve. If you enjoyed this, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.